War! War! The celebrated bull-killing bear, General Scott, will fight a bull on Sunday the 15th at 2 p.m. at Mokelumne Hill. The bear will be chained with a 20-foot chain in the middle of the arena. The bull will be perfectly wild young of the Spanish breed and the best that can be found in the country. The bull's horns will be of their natural length and not sawed off to prevent accidents. The bull will be quite free in the arena and not hampered in any way whatever. The proprietors then went on to state that they had nothing to do with the humbugging which characterized the last fight and begged confidently to assure the public that this would be the most splendid exhibition ever seen in the country. I had often heard of these bull and bear fights as popular amusements in some parts of the state, but had never yet had an opportunity of witnessing them. So on Sunday the 15th I found myself walking up towards the arena among a crowd of miners and others of all nations to witness the performances of the redoubted General Scott. The amphitheatre was a roughly but strongly built wooden structure, uncovered of course, and the outer enclosure, which was of boards about 10 feet high, was 100 feet in diameter. The arena in the centre was 40 feet in diameter and enclosed by a very strong 5-barred fence. From the top of this rose tiers of seats occupying the space between the arena and the outside enclosure. As the appointed hour drew near, the company continued to arrive till the whole place was crowded, while, to beguile the time till the business of the day should commence, 2 fiddlers, a white man and a gentleman of colour, performed a variety of appropriate airs. The scene was gay and brilliant, and was one which would have made a crowded opera house appear gloomy and dull in comparison. The shelving bank of human beings which encircled the place was like a mass of bright flowers. The most conspicuous objects were the shirts of the miners, red, white, and blue being the fashionable colours, among which appeared bronzed and bearded faces under hats of every hue. Revolvers and silver-handled bowie knives glanced in the bright sunshine, and among the crowd were numbers of gay Mexican blankets and red and blue French bonnets, while here and there the fair sex was represented by a few Mexican women in snowy white dresses puffing their cigaritas in delightful anticipation of the exciting scene which was to be enacted. Over the heads of the highest circle of spectators was seen mountain beyond mountain, fading away in the distance, and on the green turf of the arena lay the great centre of attraction, the hero of the day, General Scott. He was, however, not yet exposed to public gaze, but was confined in his cage, a heavy wooden box lined with iron, with open iron bars on one side, which for the present was boarded over. From the centre of the arena a chain led into the cage, and at the end of it, no doubt, the bear was to be found. Beneath the scaffolding on which sat the spectators were 2 pens, each containing a very handsome bull, showing evident signs of indignation at his confinement. Here also was the bar, without which no place of public amusement would be complete. There was much excitement among the crowd as to the result of the battle, as the bear had already killed several bulls, but an idea prevailed that in former fights the bulls had not had fair play, being tied by a rope to the bear and having the tips of their horns sawed off. But on this occasion the bull was to have every advantage which could be given him, and he certainly had the good wishes of the spectators, though the bear was considered such a successful and experienced bullfighter that the betting was all in his favour. Some of my neighbours gave it as their opinion that there was nary bull in California as could whip that bar. At last, after a final tattoo had been beaten on a gong to make the stragglers hurry up the hill, preparations were made for beginning the fight. The bear made his appearance before the public in a very bearish manner. His cage ran upon very small wheels, and some bolts having been slipped connected with the face of it, it was dragged out of the ring When, as his chain only allowed him to come within a foot or two of the fence, the general was rolled out upon the ground all of a heap, and very much against his inclination apparently, for he made violent efforts to regain his cage as it disappeared. When he saw that was hopeless, he floundered halfway round the ring at the length of his chain and commenced to tear up the earth with his forepaws. He was a grizzly bear of pretty large size, weighing about 1,200 pounds. The next thing to be done was to introduce the bull. The bars between his pen and the arena were removed, while 2 or 3 men stood ready to put them up again as soon as he should come out. But he did not seem to like the prospect, and was not disposed to move till pretty sharply poked up from behind, when, making a furious dash at the red flag which was being waved in front of the gate, he found himself in the ring face to face with General Scott. The general, in the meantime, had scraped a hole for himself 2 or 3 inches deep, in which he was lying down. This, I was told by those who had seen his performances before, was his usual fighting attitude. The bull was a very beautiful animal, of a dark purple colour marked with white. His horns were regular and sharp, and his coat was as smooth and glossy as a racer's. He stood for a moment taking a survey of the bear, the ring, and the crowds of people. But not liking the appearance of things in general, he wheeled around and made a splendid dash at the bars, which had already been put up between him and his pen, smashing through them with as much ease as the man in the circus leaps through a hoop of brown paper. This was only losing time, however, for he had to go in and fight, and might as well have done so at once. He was accordingly again persuaded to enter the arena, and a perfect barricade of bars and boards was erected to prevent his making another retreat. But this time he had made up his mind to fight, and after looking steadily at the bear for a few minutes, as if taking aim at him, he put down his head and charged furiously at him across the arena. The bear received him crouching down as low as he could, and though one could hear the bump of the bull's head and horns upon his ribs, he was quick enough to seize the bull by the nose before he could retreat. This spirited commencement of the battle on the part of the bull was hailed with uproarious applause, and by having shown such pluck, he had gained more than ever the sympathy of the people. In the meantime, the bear, lying on his back, held the bull's nose firmly between his teeth and embraced him around the neck with his forepaws, while the bull made the most of his opportunities in stamping on the bear with his hind feet. At last, the general became exasperated at such treatment, and shook the bull savagely by the nose, when a promiscuous scuffle ensued, which resulted in the bear throwing his antagonist to the ground with his forepaws. For this feat the bear was cheered immensely, and it was thought that having the bull down, he would make short work of him. But apparently wild beasts do not tear each other to pieces quite so easily as is generally supposed, for neither the bear's teeth nor his long claws seemed to have much effect on the hide of the bull, who soon regained his feet and, disengaging himself, retired to the other side of the ring, while the bear again crouched down in his hole. Neither of them seemed to be very much the worse for the encounter, excepting that the bull's nose had rather a ragged and bloody appearance. But after standing a few minutes, steadily eyeing the general, he made another rush at him. Again poor Bruin's ribs resounded, but again he took the bull's nose into chancery, having seized him just as before. The bull, however, quickly disengaged himself and was making off, when the general, not wishing to part with him so soon, seized his hind foot between his teeth, and, holding on by his paws as well, was thus dragged round the ring before he quitted his hold. This round terminated with shouts of delight from the excited spectators, and it was thought that the bull might have a chance after all. He had been severely punished, however. His nose and lips were a mass of bloody shreds, and he lay down to recover himself. But he was not allowed to rest very long, being poked up with sticks by men outside, which made him very savage. He made several feints to charge them through the bars, which, fortunately, he did not attempt, for he could certainly have gone through them as easily as he had before broken into his pen. He showed no inclination to renew the combat, but by goading him and waving a red flag over the bear, he was eventually worked up to such a state of fury as to make another charge. The result was exactly the same as before, only that when the bull managed to get up after being thrown, the bear still had hold of the skin of his back. In the next round, both parties fought more savagely than ever, and the advantage was rather in favour of the bear. The bulls seemed to be quite used up, and to have lost all chance of victory. The conductor of the performances then mounted the barrier and, addressing the crowd, asked them if the bull had not had fair play, which was unanimously allowed. He then stated that he knew there was not a bull in California which the general could not whip, and that for $200 he would let in the other bull, and the three should fight it out till one or all were killed. This proposal was received with loud cheers, and 2 or 3 men going around with hats soon collected, in voluntary contributions, the required amount. The people were intensely excited and delighted with the sport, and double the sum would have been just as quickly raised to ensure a continuance of the scene. A man sitting next to me, who was a connoisseur in bear fights and passionately fond of the amusement, informed me that this was the finest fight ever fit in the country. The second bull was equally as handsome as the first, and in as good condition. On entering the arena and looking around him, he seemed to understand the state of affairs at once. Glancing from the bear lying on the ground to the other bull standing at the opposite side of the ring, with drooping head and bloody nose, he seemed to divine at once that the bear was their common enemy, and rushed at him full tilt. The bear, as usual, pinned him by the nose, but this bull did not take such treatment so quietly as the other. Struggling violently, he soon freed himself, and, wheeling around as he did so, he caught the bear on the hindquarters and knocked him over. While the other bull, who had been quietly watching the proceedings, thought this a good opportunity to pitch in also, and rushing up, he gave the bear a dig in the ribs on the other side before he had time to recover himself. The poor general between the two did not know what to do, but struck out blindly with his forepaws with such a suppliant, pitiable look that I thought this the most disgusting part of the whole exhibition. After another round or two with the fresh bull, it was evident that he was no match for the bear, and it was agreed to conclude the performances. The bulls were then shot to put them out of pain, and the company dispersed, all apparently satisfied that it had been a very splendid fight. The reader can form his own opinion as to the character of an exhibition such as I have endeavoured to describe. For my own part, I did not at first find the actual spectacle so disgusting as I had expected I should, for as long as the animals fought with spirit, they might have been supposed to be following their natural instincts. But when the bull had to be urged and goaded on to return to the charge, the cruelty of the whole proceeding was too apparent, and when the 2 bulls at once were let in upon the bear, all idea of sport or fair play was at an end, and it became a scene which one would rather have prevented than witnessed. In these bull and bear fights, the bull sometimes kills the bear at the first charge by plunging his horns between the ribs and striking a vital part. Such was the fate of General Scott in the next battle he fought a few weeks afterward, but it is seldom that the bear kills the bull outright, his misery being in most cases ended by a rifle ball when he can no longer maintain the combat. I took a sketch of the general the day after the battle. He was in the middle of the now deserted arena and was in a particularly savage humour. He seemed to consider my intrusion on his solitude as a personal insult, for he growled most savagely and stormed about in his cage, even pulling at the iron bars in his efforts to get out. I could not help thinking what a pretty mess he would have made of me if he had succeeded in doing so, but I regarded with peculiar satisfaction the massive architecture of his abode, and, taking a seat a few feet from him, I lighted my pipe and waited till he should quiet down into an attitude, which he soon did, though very sulkily, when he saw that he could not help himself. He did not seem to be much the worse for the battle, having but one wound, and that appeared to be only skin deep. Such a bear as this, alive, was worth about $1,500. The method of capturing them is a service of considerable danger and requires a great deal of labor and constant watching. A spot is chosen in some remote part of the mountains where it has been ascertained that bears are pretty numerous. Here, a species of cage is built, about 12 feet square and 6 feet high, constructed of pine logs and fastened after the manner of a log cabin. As this is suspended between two trees, 6 or 7 feet from the ground, and inside is hung a huge piece of beef communicating by a string with a trigger, so contrived that the slightest tug at the beef draws the trigger, and down comes the trap, which has more the appearance of a log cabin suspended in the air than anything else. A locomotive cage, lined with iron, has also to be taken to the spot, to be kept in readiness for Bruin's accommodation, for the pine log trap would not hold him long. He would soon eat and tear his way out of it. The enterprising bear catchers have therefore to remain in the neighborhood and keep a sharp lookout. Removing the bear from the trap to the cage is the most dangerous part of the business. One side of the trap is so contrived as to admit of being opened or removed, and the cage is drawn up alongside, with the door also open, when the bear has to be persuaded to step into his new abode, in which he travels down to the more populous parts of the country to fight bulls for the amusement of the public.